My name is Joy. I am a simple housewife and I have a family of four. My husband and I, along with our two sons, one in nursery school and the other one in primary one. We live in a peaceful neighborhood in a joint bungalow with our neighbor, Mrs. Ola, and her husband and their young daughter, who is in the same school as my son. Mrs. Ola is the plus size and a proud owner of a provision store, but for some reason, she has her attention fixed on me. She always comes to get a free ride from me to pick up her daughter from school. Since her daughter is in the same class as my son, she always brought up unnecessary conversation anytime we are together. My husband earns over 1.5 million naira every month, Mrs. Ola said proudly. Your husband must be making good money too, right? That's why you're not working, she asked sarcastically. Well, we're getting by, I replied. But he doesn't have a car. Hmm? So is it that Camry you drive that you and your husband are managing every day? It's a simple car, but it gets us where we need to go, I said, feeling upset with the way Miss Sola spoke. Ah, you must feel so lucky, Sha, to be a housewife. I wish I could just sit at home and relax like you. It's not exactly all relaxation. Anyways, just don't come to me when money wahala start to. I'm telling you now. I'll keep that in mind. You're not young anymore, my sister. Better hold that man tight before he starts looking elsewhere. Thanks for your advice, Mrs. Ola. Shall we pick up the kids now? Yes, let's go. Just saying it out of love. Making silly comments like this were always the highlight of her days. I did get irritated at her choice of words. Personally, I would like it if she kept her nose away from my business. I never really wanted to be friends with my neighbor, but because our children were in the same school, there was no way I could avoid her. I didn't like Miss Sola because of how she behaved whenever she came to my house to ride with me to my son's school. She would ask for lunch as if it were a routine, and as if she owned the place, she'd make her way to my fridge. I had warned her more than once to stay away from my fridge, but my words seemed to fall on deaf ears. She would take my kids' snacks without permission and even stuff them in her bag. I tried hiding the snacks in the cabinets thinking that they would deter her. But no, she would wander around the kitchen, rummaging through my cupboards until she found them. Ah, Joy, I wonder how you keep all these sweets around and still stay so slim. I don't eat them all at once. They're actually for my children, not for you, Mrs. Ola. Please drop them back. Haba Joy. Don't be selfish. I was only helping myself to a few. Look, there's still plenty left. They are for my kids, Mrs. Ola. Please return them to the cupboard where you found it. Ha, Joy. Don't be stingy. You're such a lucky woman. Two sons, a slim figure, and here I am with just one daughter, and I'm still this big. But my husband loves me, Sha. That's nice, Mrs. Ola. Don't worry, I'll leave some for the kids. Just saying, I wish I had your metabolism. I knew all too well that Mrs. Ola's words were nothing but a facade. More than once, I have overheard heated arguments drifting from my neighbor's house. Arguments over Mrs. Ola's constant eating, her weight, and her lack of self control. Rumor had it she couldn't even keep track of her own shop inventory because she nibbled her way through the stock and barely kept accounts. But the worst offense by far was Mrs. Ola leaving her shop completely unattended to wander over to my home, all under the pretense of going together to pick up the kids. She'd swoop into the kitchen, always hungry, always eager to raid my fridge and snacks. This has to stop, I thought, as we made our way to the school. Soon after, when I started planning for my son's birthday, I had to invite my neighbors officially. Hi, Mrs. Ola. I wanted to officially invite you and Sally to Caleb's birthday next Friday. Oh, I'm already hungry just thinking about it. Make sure the food is plenty. And buy big cake, alright? Yes, there will be cake for everyone, especially Sally. I could order the drinks from my store for you. You just have to pay for it, of course. Oh, I wish I could avoid this altogether. But if I buy drinks elsewhere, people will say I did not patronize my neighbor. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. Just place an order for 6 packs of drinks. But don't blame me if one goes missing or. Alright then, 6 packs it is, I said, hiding my frustration. That fateful Friday, my neighbors, family, and friends arrived with their children to my son's birthday. As food was served, Mrs. Ola began eating excessively, as if she was in competition with other guests. Mrs. Ola, don't force yourself to eat so much now, a mom said. Ah, it's not my fault. Joy's food is just too delicious. At least leave some for the rest of us, Mrs. Ola, another mom replied. If you all wanted some, you should have been quicker. This food won't eat itself, Mrs. Ola replied. And they all laughed at her as she gulped down more food. Everyone was having fun and dancing to music. Mrs. Ola must have felt left out. She quickly loaded more food in her mouth and strolled over to where I and the other mothers were chatting. She laughed loudly as she spoke. Hey everyone, isn't it true? Joy here is just a common housewife with no real job, unlike us mothers, right? She laughed, seemingly pleased with herself. Immediately, my elder brother stepped forward angrily. Excuse me, what do you mean by that? My brother said. Joy inherited over 10 acres of land and 4 rental properties from our father, and she is a successful forex trader on top of that. Everyone was surprised at what my brother said, including Mrs. Ola and her husband. Honestly, no one knew that I was rich. Mrs. Ola felt ashamed, but was too proud to admit it. Oh, well, I didn't realize. At this point, I was very angry. How dare you, Mrs. Ola? You barge into my house, eat my food, and then insult me right in front of everyone. I do it because we are friends, aren't we? Friends should share what they have. No one likes a friend who comes begging for food all the time and take things without asking for permission. The guest nodded and murmured in agreement, casting an annoyed look at Mrs. Ola. Mrs. Ola, who was writhing with jealousy, continued, I was just helping you. And by the way, don't think you're the only one with money. My husband is rich too, she said. Ola, will you stop? Mr. Ola, red with embarrassment, tried to hush his wife. You're embarrassing us. Stop sharing private details. I don't make much money, and I haven't worked at Idoko in months. Mrs. Ola's husband shouted angrily. But Mrs. Ola, who lacked common sense, continued. Well, she's just lucky, with all her inheritance and that slim figure of hers. It's not fair. I'm an only child, and yet I don't get that kind of support, Mrs. Ola shouted defiantly. And look at her, so greedy with her money and snacks, always hoarding the best foods. I have said my mind. I can't stand seeing people think she's more successful than me. You eat all our products and cannot make any money. That was what you did in our previous neighborhood. That was why we had to move. Our former neighbors disliked you. You used to eat in their houses and they reported you to me, Mr. Ola said furiously. He told Mrs. Ola to go home immediately. Ignoring his anger, Mrs. Ola defiantly grabbed 2 layers of the 3-tier birthday cake. I'll have the cake. It's the least you can do for me, she declared, stomping off towards her house with the cake clutched in her arms. My son began crying, heartbroken over his ruined birthday cake. My anger boiled over, and I demanded she return it. Bring back my son's cake, or I'll call the police, I yelled after her. Everyone at the party was outraged and joined in calling on her to return what she had taken. Luckily for us, my brother had bought some boxes of cupcakes on his way here, so I had shared that with everyone. Days later, a family meeting was held at Mrs. Ola's house, and it is rumored that her husband wants a divorce. Because she has refused to apologize to me and my family, she had refused that she was in the wrong at all. Since so many neighbors were present at my son's birthday, the incident had spread, and Mrs. Ola was made fun of everywhere she went. Eventually, Mrs. Ola was sent back to the village while Mr. Ola and their daughter came to my house to offer their heartfelt apologies. He is a very kind and honest man, and I don't have anything against him. At least, I won't get to see his wife for a while. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you for more.